Okay, welcome to Bitrix Live. I'm Damien Edwards from Bitrix Partners Interface. We're based in the UK. We have offices in New York and Dubai. And with me I've got our support manager, Andy Naylor.
Hi guys, welcome to the live session. We're going to be live for the next hour, and we are live every Thursday at 10 AM Eastern Time for an hour live session, and we're here basically to answer any questions that you may have about Bitrix, whether you're using Bitrix and you wonder how to do something in particular. Then we can show you on the screen. So there's a number of different methods you can get your questions into. You can easily ask the question on YouTube in the box just next to the video. You can tweet us at Interface, or you can send us an email to live@interface.com. And if you have any questions in the week and you would like us to answer those on today's session or next week's session, just pop them to live@interface.com. We can pick them up on the next session. So yeah, just ask us any questions you like.
Okay, we've got a question coming on email then. The question is quite long, but essentially it's first part of the question is about the business deals with contractors. They tend to be one-man bands. The question is about whether they should set them up as companies or contacts, or whether they set them up as a company and duplicate their details into contacts. Well, certainly wouldn't duplicate their details, and there's no reason why you shouldn't just set up companies in the system. So you don't need to use the contacts module unless you need to. So if they're independent contractors, if they don't have company names, then just use the contacts. Just use the contacts module, add all the information into there. Next part of the question, is it possible to create collapsible section in the CRM record to hide large amounts of data? Okay, and can we add new tab in the CRM? Okay, so let's go to a contact record. Can you add a new tab? So I guess you're referring to sort of the links at the top. I'm going to show you a way of adding something into there. So you've asked bear with me a second, quite a long question. Is it possible to create collapsible section in CRM to hide large amounts of data? Okay, so if you want to create an area with some additional data fields, then and I'll show you a way how you can create it and create a link that goes in up here. But in addition, if you want to add it into this section here, you can create a new section to this left hand side. Well, firstly, let's have a look at the fields as they exist in here. We can see we've got a telephone number, telephone, email and address fields. You can customize this layout, so it may be more appropriate to bring those up above these other associated records. Once I've done that change, if I'm an admin, I would save preferences for all users, and so everybody's going to see the same page layout now. But one thing to remember, if I just go into, if I just hover over one of these fields, then these fields will only show if there's actually any data inside the field. So you might have a record with a large number of custom fields. I'll show you how you create a custom field in the CRM. If you don't want those fields to show if they're blank, obviously with a large number of custom fields that are blank, you could have a very long record with no data in there. If you don't want to show when the field is empty, then leave this box here unchecked and the field won't show. I can show you that if I go into the edit field by clicking change up there. Things like their second name is blank, their date of birth is blank. If we save, then we can't see that record. Let's just go in and change second name. We'll put always show on and we'll save it, and we can see now we've got the second name. We probably want to bring that down here, but you can see that it's empty. I can actually edit that field by clicking into the field without changing the whole record. So you can create multiple custom fields, and you can choose them to be displayed always or displayed only if they're blank. You can create additional sections. So we've got this section at the top we've called About Contact. We've got a section here called More. We can change the name of that section if we want to, and if you scroll right to the bottom you can add an additional section here. So created my section, I can rename that to what I want to call it, and then you can select the fields that you want to display inside that section. So I can actually create a field here, so I can create a custom field in here, choose from one of these options. If I just want a free text field, if I want a list field, which is a drop down, a selection field, if I want any of these other types of fields. Google Maps is quite good, addressing Google Maps is quite good, so allows you to put a postcode in the field, and when you hover over that it will pop up with a Google map. But there's quite a few different fields that you can do. Things like yes, no, it's just a tick box field. You can attach files, sort of thing. So it is. Let's just go into one of those and see how you create it. So I can give it a name, and that's it. Very simple. Yeah. So you can create your new section. You can give the section a name. You can then add custom fields using that link, or you can select existing fields. If I go into here, I can see all the fields that are available or have been are available as standard out of the box, or have been created on the contact record, and I can select any of those to display in my new section. But
I think going back to the question though, you can't actually hide data, can you? You can't actually hide a large amount of data from a particular field. So if this had 20 lines of text in, you can only the way that you've shown it is hiding the field, and then you'd have to show it. You can't actually have it collapsible within this section. You
can't hide any of these fields, and you can't have kind of permissions on them so that different users see different fields. I mean, I think actually if you had a self-hosted edition, we could create some permissions so that different people see different fields.
Yeah, we've done that before on the self-hosted, where if you've got specific fields that maybe you want your accounts team to see and not your sales team to see, then you can actually we've actually created field permissions before, haven't we, on specific fields for users or for departments to be able to see. But you would need to be able to see have a self-hosted edition.
Okay, and part of the question is I want to create, it's possible to create collapsible sections, e.g. creating branded sections. I don't know what you mean. Oh, sorry, banded sections, I see. Okay, so I think the best way to achieve this is to create a list or a table of data and have a link to it up here. So let's go into our lists module. Okay. So open up the CRM in another tab. So we can create a list. We're going to call it. Call it data. Make sure that we've got access to this. I'm just going to give myself admins and employees access, full access in this case, and let's go back into that list, and we need to create, so we created our list called data. We need to create our fields now, so we can add a field. We've got a field called name. Let's just add a field called date. Add that field, and then finally, so we've got a name or a description, we've got a date. Let's add another field, and this is important. You have to add this field for it to show on the CRM record. Bind to CRM items. And we're going to bind it to, you can bind it to any of the CRM modules. We're just going to bind it to the contact module here. We'll call this contact. We'll save that. back to our list. Let's add some data to this list. So the name is 123, the date is today, and the contact, let's go into one of our CRM contacts and associate this to Mike Black. So if we go into here and click Mike Black and save it. So of course you can create your fields of data, as many fields as you want to. You can view those in this list view under services. You can view this list we've called data. You can select by going to the settings, make sure you can see all those fields that you've created. Might not need that sections in this list view. It's useful to be able to work with large quantities of data in this sort of list view, because I can filter them as well. So I can filter by date or contact using any of these filters to find the information I need. But for this particular purpose, you want to be able to view some data inside the contact record. So if I go back to my contact record, you can see that link to that list is now available in this contact record. If I click into there, you can see the one I created, 123, with the date and who it's linked to. So I think if you want to create a new tab with large amounts of data that are not necessarily visible on the home page, I mean, actually you can create permissions on there as well, so that would work. If you wanted just some users to be able to see that, you could create permissions. As we go back to the list view and configure list settings, and then into access you can change this permission. So maybe we want to prevent access to employees, but just give administrators access. If you change the settings in there, it will change who can see this link, so that link won't appear. If we just go into a different record, Jane Green, then okay, so she sees the link. You see the link in all the contact records, but you don't see any data because we haven't associated the record with Jane Green. We just associated one with this user, Mike Black. So I think you can add. You don't need to go to the other page. You can add a list item or add data into this page. So really, you can add as many of those as you wanted. They will appear in this. And if you set
the employees to not be able to add, so you only had read view only, if an employee came to Mike Black and clicked on data, would that just mean that they would just be able to view this particular one rather than?
Yeah, I think so. So they wouldn't have the option to be able to add or edit or delete, like you say in there. So you've got those as full access.
So they just be able to see the table of data. So just another question, just with regards to triggering workflows from this, could you, if you built a workflow, could you trigger it from this particular section? So
no, doesn't look like you can. So if we go back to the list,
we haven't got one on here. That was all. If you just added one.
Oh right, yeah, okay. Let's have a look at that then. Go back to the list. Configure workflow. So it's good. It's a good question. So we create a workflow.
So for those of you that have never used lists before, what you're doing is creating a form and storing the data submitted in the form in a table format. But the powerful thing of Bitrix is that in the lists module, and we've got a system-wide list module of what Damien's using here, we also have a list module in each project workgroup as well. So it's exactly the same, but they are workgroup specific, so you can have it on a per project basis. And when that data gets submitted, you can actually, what we're doing here is going to trigger a business process off to pretty much do whatever you want it to do. We can go for approval, we can, if you're uploading files to the form, you can add them into the document drives. You can pretty much do anything you want within the workflow.
Okay, so we're going to create a workflow or a business process. We'll call it business process template as the default name. We've got the option here to run the process when a new list item's been added, or when something's changed on that list item, or we can just run it manually. Those auto runs we're going to deselect in this case. Save that. So the business process will, in this case, it will, so look, send that notification. So send a notification from this user to myself. Let's have a look. John Smith. Okay, and test notification. So that's what it's going to do. Of course, when you're building a workflow, there's a large number of actions that you can perform in that workflow, including changing fields in CRM records, adding new CRM records, deleting, notifying email people, etc., etc.
Yeah, if anybody's watching and they actually are stuck with one of their processes, please just ask away. We can try and help to see and tell you if it is possible within the business process tool as well.
So if we go back into our contact, let's refresh the page, go back into our contact Mike Smith, go into our list again called data, and no, it's not available in there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look back in services, open this in a new tab, and yeah, okay. So we can run a business process from here. This is the process we created. We called it business process template. That will send a notification, and we can run that. So there's the notification. You can run that from the list. You can't actually run that from the record inside the CRM. You could though. So you can't run it manually by selecting from this list here. Just the option's just not available. You could though, if we go back into the business process, into here, we could have that run when added. Let's just do that and apply that. And if we go back into our contact, I'm going to add a new one now. We'll call it 321. Put it in as yesterday's date and save. And you can see that straight away we've got a notification. So in this case, we've triggered a business process. Simply sent a notification. Can do a lot more, but in this case, test case, it's just sent a notification, and that's happened when we created it. So it might be that you want to notify somebody. A sales manager or a supervisor needs to know when these things have been added. You can add some parameters in there, or some conditions in there, so that notifications only sent out when certain conditions are met, I guess.
So in essence, really, it's quite a powerful tool, because if you can assign it to a particular, like for contacts, for example, you could actually have, I don't know, proposals. You could have a proposals list, and you could have all the fields that you need to populate a proposal with. You click on submit, and then on the self-hosted you could actually have the system create a proposal PDF with all the data that you've pre-filled in the form, and then it would be associated to this particular contact. So you could see the proposals under Mike Black, for example. Yeah, you could, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So when they've performed an action, you could see a list of all those. You could see an item in this list view of all of those. So yeah, there's options, different options. If you wanted to go through that with us afterwards, we can go through and help you set that up. There's a final part to the question about client access. It looks like you want to obviously store information about this client. You're asking if is it possible to give the client access to their own records so they can add missing data, e.g. national insurance numbers and addresses. So under the terms of the license, it's not possible to give a client as an extranet user access to the CRM. You could give them, if you're prepared to buy a license, a full user license, and create a user as a full user and give that to your client, they could access the CRM. You could create some permissions so that they can only see their own CRM record. You would go into, to do that, you would go into CRM and settings, and then into permissions, access permissions, and let's go into, you create a role. So we create a role called, let's say this one's called clients. Just go into the role itself, and you would just prevent them from being able to see essentially all records apart from contacts, but they would only be able to see personal contacts. Personal contacts, yes, you would make them responsible for their own record, and so they'd only be able to see the records they were responsible for. Provided you only make them responsible for one record, their own record, then they wouldn't be able to see any other records. If we just go back into Yeah, you could deny access to all the other modules. So you could deny access to companies, leads, deals. So they would only see their contacts in the top. Click on it, and then they would just see their own.
So this is the responsible person. You can change that. If you change that to your client, then they'd only see their own record. I think actually, if you're wanting to invite in a client, and it says you've got to shut down some of the other areas. You're going to struggle a little bit probably on the cloud doing that. I think because you're going to want to make the user experience as simple as possible for a client. So with the self-hosted, you could simplify the user interface a lot more. You could brand it, add your own branding on there.
You could get rid of everything on the left-hand side, couldn't you, on the self-hosted, and just leave CRM. I mean, you could even rename CRM for particular clients to your contact or your profile.
I think really, if you're inviting clients in that way, then the self-hosted will be the best option for you. The only other option really is to invite them in as an extranet user and then create a work group for each client. If we go into a work group, then they would see something like that. Got the guy there. They would see something like that, and you could choose which of these features they're able to see. They wouldn't be able to edit their own, as the question was, can they change things like their telephone numbers and addresses? They wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, you could create a process if you had a self-hosted whereby they could log in here and there'd be a form where they could change it, and that could then
populate their
populate their field.
We've got you just on the permission side of things. We've got a question come through on YouTube. Is there a way to restrict the contacts that a registered user can see? I want to hire new salespeople, and I don't want them to see all of the contacts. So, I mean, Damien's touched upon that. So, if we go into the CRM, how it generally works is that a contact has a responsible person. So, that is a registered user. So, you can see we're currently logged in as John Smith, and John Smith's responsible for four contacts. But Mary Jones is responsible for just the one contact. So where Damien went into this CRM settings and then permissions, you generally have three levels of permission. So you have personal. So what that is referring to is it's referring to all the contacts that registered user is responsible for. So in this case, if we did it for John Smith, he would be able to see 4 contacts and not Mary's contact. If you did personal and department and sub-department, then you could do it so if you created in your company structure, which is under the employees section here, so you could set it so, for example, UK sales will only see everybody in, so all the contacts that are associated with UK sales, and you could set another role to have all the US sales see all the contacts in the US sales department. So those are the options that you have really, and once you've set the role, what you would do then is, if we just jump back, you can then assign either on a user by user basis. So you could assign a user. So if we said, for example, Andy is going to have the role that you've just created here set up to Sales South, so they'll only be able to see the contacts in the Sales South department. You could do it by that, or you can set it on a department, so the whole department can see, the whole HR department can take up that particular role that you've set up. And you can set those permissions on contacts, companies, deals, leads, invoices, and quotes. And you can also set those permissions up on deal pipelines. So you may want to restrict pipelines for each individual user.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go back into there and expand this deal section here, so yeah, you can do it by, these are different deal pipelines. You can have different permissions for different pipelines. But in addition to that, you can have permissions based on the deal stage. So when a deal becomes one, maybe you want to maybe not access deny. Yeah, maybe access deny. Maybe you just want to prevent, not on read, but on change. You maybe want to access denied on change. So when a deal becomes one, nobody can then change it unless you're an administrator. So the permissions can change as the opportunity progresses through, which I think can be useful. I have a follow-up question from the client access question. So the final part was, how can we ask client feedback? How can we ask for this after every job? So that would be a case of creating a process. So let's go into the CRM, close some of these down. So let's say a job is going to be a deal. I think that would be the simplest thing to do.
Or you could run a manual workflow on a company or contact.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely. So
there's a number of different ways. It depends if you're working in. It depends if the client's working in deals. Because deals is really good. If you're going to end a deal, it will automatically send out an email with a form, link to a form.
I mean, actually, it depends. Yeah, you could actually do it in a list as well, couldn't you? As we looked at before, the list, the process could maybe trigger on a date or something, or when a new one's added. But yeah, we could do it in a deal whereby it automatically is triggered when a deal is won. Let's say after every job, let's say you change this to complete in the description, and that could trigger a process. Or then it says you could do it manually. Let's have a look in the contact. Go back into this contact. So we could have a business process that was available in this list of processes up here that was called client feedback, and we could click that, and that would trigger requests for them to feedback. So that it would actually just, if we look at it, let's go back to there, keep that page open. Let's go to settings and automation and business processes and into contacts, and we're going to add a template. Client feedback. Okay, again, we're not going to auto run this. We're going to run it only run it manually. I don't know how many you do, whether it's practical to run them manually or whether you need some automation. But let's say we're going to run these manually. So really, all we're going to do is send a message, by email, which will link to.
I would probably, if you're going to want the client, if you want client feedback to actually come automatically back in, we have a number of clients that use the CRM forms to do this. So what you could do is you could add a new form and pull in maybe you've got feedback fields that reside within the form. So what you could do, as Damien touched upon earlier, you could create a section called feedback. So it would, maybe this would be quite good against a particular deal, for example. And then you would pull in the fields that you've created, custom fields that you've created for the feedback. And then what you could do here is, if you click on client, you could actually merge the data. So you could, based on the link that you send, and the link that you will probably send is going to be something that's familiar to this. So you could send a public form, and then on the self-hosted, you can actually brand these pages in the background. You can you obviously can keep your own logo, and it's quite good because what you would do then is you would put this link. If we go back to the template here, you would put the. Sorry, I've just hijacked your.
That's fine.
And then you'd say feedback. And then you can, if you wanted to do a HTML, if anybody knows the HTML, so you could say, and then you can do a bit of, put the link into the actual web form, a bit of HTML, and then you can, they will receive that then, so you could then send as, I think if you, and then if, and then if you just save it, if you go back into the contact here, give it a refresh, what you can do is click on the run workflow, and you'll be able to see client feedback. Click on client feedback, and then that will send the email that you just created.
So in this case, the form, when completed, will populate as Andy's suggested here, the feedback section down there. You could actually then have a process that just sent a notification out when one of these fields was updated, so that your fields will exist in here, fields, you'd have to create the fields that have to match the form. But you could have, if any of those fields are changed, they can only be changed automatically when the form's filled out. You could send a quick notification to somebody to say that this has been completed, and it could link to this record, so you can see that. I think depending on what you want to do, this is obviously the contractor, the client. If you only do a job once for them, then this would work in this way. If you do multiple jobs for the same client, then maybe you run this on a deal. So you can have a client and you can have deals associated with the client. It's exactly the same in that you'd see all the jobs that you've done for this client listed out here, and you could have the same process that we've just done, business process, but you create it on a deal, and then you'd be able to see each time they submit feedback, you'd be able to see that linked to the deal record. So yeah, all as it always does depends on how you work yourself, and but it's very straightforward to set up. If you need some training or anything like that on that, then we can provide some training, or we can, if you want to get in touch with your requirements documented in a bit more detail, we could quote you to set it up for you. But hope that helps.
So I've got a question that's commonly asked on Bitrix is about customizing the PDFs for quotes and invoices. So Bitrix has introduced quite handy, if we go, I think it's actually, if we just jump into our CRM in the cloud, we've got quite a lot of users on the cloud. But if we go into the invoices, I think they will be in here now. So I think, are they on here? Just need to double check whereabouts they are now. On here. So you can see on the quotes, you can see the documents, and you can get a standard. It comes with the quotes for the quote and the invoices, but you can also see here that you can actually add templates for different things now. So you can add packing sheets, order confirmation, you can have purchase orders, and it's a case of just being able to add a template, and you can design your own template up here. So you can really brand it up. It's one of the common questions that we get asked regularly, and you can do that on, like I say, on the cloud and the self-hosted as well now. So.
Okay, we've got a question. I want to send an SMS when a deal is at a particular stage. So it's quite straightforward, isn't it? Go into a deal, and so each opportunity, each deal has these different stages. You name those yourself. If we just go into, if we just come out of there and go into settings on another page. That is settings. So if we go into the settings and we go into statuses and drop downs, and we go into
what's you looking for?
deal stages. Down here, general deals. Okay, so I couldn't see it because we've got different pipelines here. So we can rename any of these stages and colour them, and you can add additional stages as well. So first thing you need to do, create the stages that suit the way you work. Go into the deal. Then we go into automation. The question was to send an SMS. Then we can configure this to have a few different.
This is slightly different, but let's just go into, we've got a custom, let's just go into the general deal, sorry, and then just go from there. It's just because we've got somewhat different automation rules running on that.
Okay, so we've got some set up here, but essentially if you wanted an SMS to go when, let's say we're at promise stage, configure, yours will be blank, yours won't include these, but configure, and then under the promised, click into add, and then into communication SMS. So you need to have your provider integrated. So we have 4 or 5 providers that you can set up using one of the apps. It's fairly straightforward, and then once they're set up, you can then create the content of those. You pay paper on text messages, paper text messages. If you want to do it by email, of course, there's no charge.
Yeah,
send out emails.
I think if those of you that are using the cloud app or the self-hosted, in the left-hand menu, if you want to just have a look what's available, you'll be able to see an applications link here, and this leads you to the marketplace. So you can see here that there's quite a few free ones. So we've got everything from finance to email marketing, which now exists, marketing tool in Bitrix. But there are a lot of different tools, and you can, the one that we were looking at is SMS. So if you type in SMS, you'll be able to see here all the providers that Bitrix can come with. It's easier to use an application that's already being used. We've used, I believe, Plivo and Twilio. The Plivo one's really good. You can mask your number with your company name, so it doesn't come from a mobile number.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a question about integrating a existing phone system with Bitrix, and what the cost is associated with doing that. So it's not a simple question. Necessarily, it's going to telephony. So I think when it comes to telephony, you've got a number of different options. So Bitrix has a full virtual phone system built in, so you can buy your minutes, buy your credits in advance. You can then rent a number from Bitrix. You can rent local numbers in almost any country, almost any city. The local dialing code with a local dialing code, and then you're fully up and running, and you're integrated with the CRM. If we go into one of our contacts in the CRM, then this one's got a telephone number. I can dial this contact from the CRM, and I'll pay per call. I think if you go to the Bitrix website, all the call charges are listed, so landlines and mobiles are different rates in different countries. But essentially, you can do that. If we go into some of the, you can create your users in here and give them extensions. You can do things like create your queues, so who picks up incoming calls. And you can, I don't know where it's gone, you can record your permissions. Let's have a look, see if we can, is it in connection? So you can record your intro messages. So look, it's in here. Some of these links have changed around. So you can record, you can set queues, so you choose who picks up incoming calls. You can record incoming call messages. You can view all outgoing calls on a filter list like this, so you can view who's made how many calls in a day. You can listen back to those calls if you record them. If you've got recording enabled, then calls will register in the right hand side of the contacts page, so you can listen back to all those calls. So that's the first option, is to do that, is to use the Bitrix telephony, and the cost there will be cost per minute, depending on where you are, about $6 a month to rent a number, and that's kind of it. You can use it inside on a desktop, on a laptop. You can use it on a mobile with the Bitrix app, so you can forward a call from an office to somebody's mobile. Obviously, the call, if you're forwarding a call from an office to a mobile, there's no charge to forward that call from one place to another. So if you're forwarding calls from a traditional landline to a mobile number, then you're paying for that extra part of the call, so that's a big benefit. Of course, people can make calls from their mobiles while using the soft phone built into the app. So that's it. You can use Bitrix telephony. If you want to integrate with your existing phone system, then first option you've got is to use the SIP connector. So connect to your PBX here. So you can do that using the SIP connector. That's you pay $50 a month for that, and that will set it up for you. You can test that. I think you get 60 minutes of free calls to test that. So it takes a bit of setup. and you want to test that, see whether that for your situation that is suitable. Second option, or the third option really, would be to connect to an existing phone system that we have integration pre-built. So that would be something like 3PBX or 3CX. Some of these other ones we've not worked with as much, but if there's pre-built integration or an app available that's already done that does that for you, then that's fairly straightforward to do. Probably cost-wise, about $1,000 or something for us to set that up for you. So that would be the ideal approach. If you don't have a phone system already, we'd recommend 3CX. We're actually doing a webinar on Tuesday, I think, which covers telephony in detail. But if you want to connect to a phone system, you don't have the phone system, 3CX would be our recommended phone provider, phone system. We can provide you with the hardware as well as integrating it with Bitrix. I think just to finish off, the fourth option is to connect to a phone system whereby we don't have pre-built integration, and we can do that using the API. So we now have a telephony API. So in theory, you can connect to any other phone system using that. Cost-wise, it's going to go up quite a lot to do that. It's quite a lot of work, generally quite a lot of work involved. Why would you want to connect to your phone system? Well, if you have a staff of 500 but only 50 people use the CRM, Bitrix CRM, then you're not going to want to move necessarily everybody onto Bitrix telephony. Most of your employees are still going to want to use the existing phone system, so you can connect just those people that need to the existing phone system without any disruption to your business. You might have additional functionality in your phone provider, things like screens that show you on the wall that show you how many live calls are happening at a particular time, things like that, dashboards. You might have a particular call package negotiated with your provider that's particularly competitive. You might continue with that. So there's a good reason why you want to connect, but there's three essentially different ways of options you've got, so it depends on your provider to what you do. But
yeah, I think the main thing is if you do want to know a little bit more about the telephony, tune in on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I think on our website, if you go to the footer, there's a link to the webinars. Just you would have to register for that webinar. It's on a GoToWebinar link. Just register for that for, like I say, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's solely to do with telephony.
Okay. Can I remove Bitrix branding and white label it for myself? You can. Let's have a look at that. Then you can add a logo. If you've got a professional package, you can add a logo up here. So I think there's not a lot of branding anyway. There's branding on the login page. There's not a lot of branding within the site as such.
I think I've been into some client sites recently, and quite a lot of people are using the themes now. So each user has their own themes. As an administrator, you can set the theme as default. So I've seen people put their branding for their company in the background. So they've used a custom theme in the bottom right hand corner, and it's matched maybe the colours of their branding of their website. Alternatively, you can use a standard one if you wanted to. So I have seen quite a few people do that. In terms of the themes.
And then there's no other branding within the site. There's a little link down here, but there's not a lot of branding within the site. If you really want to remove all branding, then the self-hosted edition would be the best option for you. You can look at this one. This is a self-hosted edition. We've got a custom login page there, so add your own branding to that page if you want. Particularly useful, I guess, if you're inviting clients in or suppliers and things like that. Then as extranet users, then we have an extranet here on this site, which has this in a logo, but we've got some additional sort of like customizations whereby we can have additional sort of your own custom banners and things like that. So there's a lot actually with this self-hosted edition. You can have you can change the page layout. You've got an option up here to go into an edit mode, and it allows you to roll over particular content areas and change those content areas. Not only change the content that appears or how that's configured, but also change branding and things. So yeah, you get additional options with the self-hosted in terms of removing branding. You can't really remove all branding with the standard cloud editions, but you can add logos and things up there. Okay, see if we've got any more questions.
Yeah, if anybody's got any more that's currently tuned in, just put them in the box, and we can answer them in the last 10 minutes. So just got a question. We had a question come in just with regards to training, really. So Bitrix has quite a good help desk system and a lot of training documents within each module. So you can actually just go to, I believe it's helpdesk.bitrix24.com, and there's a lot of articles on there with regards to the CRM and processes. And if you've got the self-hosted, they do have a little bit of an advanced training area as well. As partners, we also offer training, so you can just give us a call and we can schedule training in, whether it's in your offices, whether it's online training, and we can offer training from 1 to however many hours, however many days that you need. So,
okay, we've got a question here about meeting minutes functionality. Actually, I don't think we have that enabled on here. Just have a look. Apologise for that, but we don't have that module enabled. So, yeah, I don't think it's available in the cloud. Too sure, but there is a module that allows you to create meetings and then have minutes on those meetings. But okay, meetings and briefings. Not too sure.
No, I think we
haven't got it.
I think we did disable it.
So yeah, so it looks like we haven't got the full module enabled on here, but we have no.
Yeah, I think maybe if you want to learn a little bit more about this meetings and briefings module, just drop us an email after. We'll put our contact details on, and we can get one of the guys here to give you a quick demonstration of it.
Yeah. How do wikis work? So within a work group, you have a wiki. Let's have a look. So we have a wiki. So a wiki essentially allows you to create a web page, and then from that link to another web page. So you can create pages of information that will become searchable through the search bar up here.
Yeah, and like one of the guys has said on the chat, it is generally used for a knowledge base. I've seen them regularly used for knowledge bases to do with whatever it is that you're, maybe if you're having it in a work group. There is a site-wide wiki as well. That's under the services section on the left-hand side. But yeah, you basically create, I've seen them create an index page with a series of different links. And once you create a new wiki page, you basically have an internal linking structure between all the wiki pages. So it is really handy for a knowledge base. I've seen them used for glossaries of terms in terms of on projects. So it's really good that they're in each individual work group as well. It's slightly dated, I think, in terms of the actual look compared to the other areas. I think it's one of the last areas that Bitrix will update, and we'll be able to see some new buttons and maybe new features included in this.
Yeah, so you can use code in here, HTML, or you can use the visual editor here. So I can change the text using this editor tool. I think the other option we've got in terms of creating page contents. If you're on self-hosted, then if we go to news, So we have a section like this. So if you want great pages of information, again, we're searchable through the search bar. Then we have a news module. It's not available on the cloud, but it does allow you to create news. This is a sort of news style page, but it allows you to create pages of information, which you say would be searchable. It allows people to leave comments on that as well. If I go into edit mode again as an admin, then I can roll over any of these news stories. I can edit that news story and add a new one. So I can put, again, you've got a visual editor. So this is on the self-hosted. I've got a visual editor here. I can add my image, choose the sections it goes in, so that people can navigate through different types of views or stories that you want to create.
Yeah, this is one of the custom modules that we've it does come. The news does come with Bitrix. It's the self-hosted version, but we've actually tweaked, as Damien said, we've tweaked this a little bit in terms of the actual improving the aesthetics of it, the look of it. It looks really a lot more modern in a way, the way you can easily show pictures and a snippet of what the news is regarding.
Yeah, and some businesses might want to use this as a homepage. So instead of the activity stream, you might have this as your default homepage. You can see across the top, if you want to have different sections for people to navigate through, you can do that. I don't know if you can put permissions on these, so different users, I think you probably can, to different users or user groups. So if you're a large organisation, you might want, especially in different countries, you might want to do different articles for different areas, areas of the departments or different countries. So different options in terms of how to creating sort of like ad hoc content like that.
Yeah, going with the content, I think the content, especially on the self-hosted, you can create new content areas in each individual section. So we've created new pages within the work groups. So we've created new menu items in work groups, and you can have your own static page with videos, text, images, any HTML really. So I think if you are looking for the ability to create dynamic pages inside Bitrix, then I think the self-hosted is obviously the preferred version to do that. But the wikis do allow you, in terms of the cloud, to create pages with all sorts of content in.
Yeah, I got a comment about many companies rely on internally on wikis very heavily. I think that's right, and I think the difference between this sort of page and a wiki is that a wiki generally users can edit the content of them. I think that's the main reason. So if there's something not right or someone who wants to contribute more to it, then users can access that. You see a history of who's made those changes. With a news page like this, it would be more the marketing department or HR, certain personnel that sort of create the content. You can't then change the content in here, but you can add a comment to it if you want to do that. You can subscribe to it, so you see notifications when you sort of post if you can tag, if you get tags on these, I think you can tag them. Let's just click into there. Yeah, so you can put in tags. That would allow them to be searchable then by those sort of keywords as well. Okay, any more questions? What is the average time if I submit a ticket? So I think if that's referring to submitting a ticket to Bitrix, then I think Bitrix reply within 24 hours on all tickets. So that would be their SLA. If you need a faster response, then we have a support package, telephone support package for cloud and self-hosted users. Which allows you, we put you in touch with a dedicated contact. They understand what your business is about, learn what your business is about, and you can ring them or contact them in the most appropriate method, and you'll get a much quicker response and potentially a more detailed response. But response times for tickets is 24 hours with Bitrix.
I think we're coming to the end of the session now. So if we just wrap up, we've got, you can see on the screen at the moment, we've got all our contact details there. So we're based in the US, the UK, and in Dubai. And basically, if you have any questions that we've not covered and you would like an instant response, just drop us an email to sales@Intraface. One of the team will pick that up and be able to answer you. Our team can also show you personalized demonstrations of any areas within Bitrix, so we can do that online, or again we can come to your office and show you anything that you may need. And yeah, we basically, as Damien mentioned, we offer support and we offer a complete range of the ability to customize your system. So if you need any processes or anything like that, then you can you can request it from us and we can help. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. Like I said, we're here. You can see it will be on webinars, and then you'll be able to register for that there. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.